Hello! We're excited to show you our native speech capabilities. Welcome back to the English journey. Today, we are being a little bit brave. We are talking about the big lies that society told us. I'm Anna.
And I'm Abel. We usually follow the rules without asking why. Today, we want to break some of those rules using English and help you see the world differently.
That's right. And before we begin, I want to say something important. When we use the word lies today, we do not mean that people were trying to hurt us. We do not mean that your parents were bad people or that your teachers were wrong about everything. What we mean is that some of the ideas we grow up with are simply not true. They are passed from one generation to the next without anyone stopping to ask the question, wait, is this actually correct?
Yes, exactly. And that question, that simple question of, wait, is this actually correct, is one of the most powerful questions you can ask in life. I know because I did not ask it for a very long time. I just accepted everything I was told. Go to school, work hard, follow the plan, and everything will be fine.
And did everything become fine?
Well, not exactly the way I expected. And that is the key word today, actually, the word expectation. An expectation is what you think will happen. It is what you believe should happen based on the information you have received. When our expectations come from ideas that are not fully true, we can feel very confused and very lost when real life does not match the picture in our head.
That is such a good point. And for our English learners, let us make sure you understand that word, an expectation. E-X-P-E-C-T-A-T-I-O-N. An expectation is a strong belief that something will happen in a certain way. For example, I had an expectation that finishing university would make me feel successful. But when I finished, I felt a little bit lost, actually, because the expectation was not the same as the reality.
Exactly. And this is what we are going to explore today. We are going to look at some of the most common ideas that society teaches us, the things we hear again and again from people around us, from movies, from social media, from well-meaning family members. And we are going to ask the question, is this actually true, or is this a misconception?
Another wonderful word, a misconception. A misconception is an idea that is wrong, but that many people believe is right. The prefix mis means wrong or bad, and conception means an idea or a belief. So a misconception is a wrongly held belief, something that feels true, but is not actually accurate when you look at it carefully.
I love how you break down the words, Anna. It really helps.
Thank you. It is one of my favorite things to do. Language is like a puzzle, and when you look at the pieces, everything makes more sense.
Okay, so let us start with the very first big lie. And this one is perhaps the most common, the most universal. Almost every culture in the world teaches some version of this idea. The idea that life is supposed to follow a straight line, a specific path, a specific order. You go to school, you graduate, you get a job, you fall in love, you get married, you buy a house, you have children, and then, somewhere at the end of all of that, you are happy. You have made it. You have succeeded.
The linear path. That is what many people call it. Linear means in a straight line, one step after another, always moving forward in a clear and predictable direction. And for a very long time, this linear path was treated almost like a fact, like a scientific law. If you follow these steps in this order, you will be okay.
And I genuinely believed this. I'm being very honest right now. I thought that if I just followed the steps, I would reach a destination called happiness. I thought happiness was a place, a destination at the end of the road. I did not understand that happiness is more like the weather. It comes and goes, it changes. Sometimes it's sunny, and sometimes there are clouds, and neither of those things means you're on the wrong road.
I think what is interesting about the linear path lie is that it's not completely without value. There is some wisdom in having a plan. There is something useful about having structure in your life. The problem is not the plan itself. The problem is the rigidity. The word rigidity means being too stiff, too stripped, not allowing for any flexibility or change. When we are too rigid about the path, we start to feel like a failure every time our life does not match the expected steps.
Right, and so many people I know feel like failures because they did not hit certain milestones at the expected time. They did not get married by 30. They changed their career at 40. They went back to school after having children. And instead of seeing these things as brave and creative choices, they felt ashamed because the linear path said they were supposed to be somewhere else by now.
And this connects to a concept that is very important in critical thinking, the concept of the status quo. The status quo is a Latin phrase that means the existing state of things. It means the way things are right now, the way things have always been done, the accepted normal. When we challenge the status quo, we are saying just because this is how it's always been done does not mean it's the best way, or the right way, or the only way.
I love how you break down the words, Anna. It really helps.
Thank you. It is one of my favorite things to do. Language is like a puzzle, and when you look at the pieces, everything makes more sense.
Okay, so let us start with the very first big lie. And this one is perhaps the most common, the most universal. Almost every culture in the world teaches some version of this idea. The idea that life is supposed to follow a straight line, a specific path, a specific order. You go to school, you graduate, you get a job, you fall in love, you get married, you buy a house, you have children, and then, somewhere at the end of all of that, you are happy. You have made it. You have succeeded.
The linear path. That is what many people call it. Linear means in a straight line, one step after another, always moving forward in a clear and predictable direction. And for a very long time, this linear path was treated almost like a fact, like a scientific law. If you follow these steps in this order, you will be okay.
And I genuinely believed this. I'm being very honest right now. I thought that if I just followed the steps, I would reach a destination called happiness. I thought happiness was a place, a destination at the end of the road. I did not understand that happiness is more like the weather. It comes and goes, it changes. Sometimes it's sunny, and sometimes there are clouds, and neither of those things means you're on the wrong road.
I think what is interesting about the linear path lie is that it's not completely without value. There is some wisdom in having a plan. There is something useful about having structure in your life. The problem is not the plan itself. The problem is the rigidity. The word rigidity means being too stiff, too strict, not allowing for any flexibility or change. When we are too rigid about the path, we start to feel like a failure every time our life does not match the expected steps.
Right, and so many people I know feel like failures because they did not hit certain milestones at the expected time. They did not get married by 30. They changed their career at 40. They went back to school after having children. And instead of seeing these things as brave and creative choices, they felt ashamed because the linear path said they were supposed to be somewhere else by now.
And this connects to a concept that is very important in critical thinking, the concept of the status quo. The status quo is a Latin phrase that means the existing state of things. It means the way things are right now, the way things have always been done, the accepted normal. When we challenge the status quo, we are saying just because this is how it's always been done does not mean it's the best way, or the right way, or the only way.
I love how you break down the words, Anna. It really helps.
Thank you. It is one of my favorite things to do. Language is like a puzzle, and when you look at the pieces, everything makes more sense.
Okay, so let us start with the very first big lie. And this one is perhaps the most common, the most universal. Almost every culture in the world teaches some version of this idea. The idea that life is supposed to follow a straight line, a specific path, a specific order. You go to school, you graduate, you get a job, you fall in love, you get married, you buy a house, you have children, and then, somewhere at the end of all of that, you are happy. You have made it. You have succeeded.
The linear path. That is what many people call it. Linear means in a straight line, one step after another, always moving forward in a clear and predictable direction. And for a very long time, this linear path was treated almost like a fact, like a scientific law. If you follow these steps in this order, you will be okay.
And I genuinely believed this. I'm being very honest right now. I thought that if I just followed the steps, I would reach a destination called happiness. I thought happiness was a place, a destination at the end of the road. I did not understand that happiness is more like the weather. It comes and goes, it changes. Sometimes it's sunny, and sometimes there are clouds, and neither of those things means you're on the wrong road.
I think what is interesting about the linear path lie is that it's not completely without value. There is some wisdom in having a plan. There is something useful about having structure in your life. The problem is not the plan itself. The problem is the rigidity. The word rigidity means being too stiff, too strict, not allowing for any flexibility or change. When we are too rigid about the path, we start to feel like a failure every time our life does not match the expected steps.
Right, and so many people I know feel like failures because they did not hit certain milestones at the expected time. They did not get married by 30. They changed their career at 40. They went back to school after having children. And instead of seeing these things as brave and creative choices, they felt ashamed because the linear path said they were supposed to be somewhere else by now.
And this connects to a concept that is very important in critical thinking, the concept of the status quo. The status quo is a Latin phrase that means the existing state of things. It means the way things are right now, the way things have always been done, the accepted normal. When we challenge the status quo, we're saying just because this is how it has always been done does not mean it is the best way or the right way or the only way.
I really like that phrase, challenging the status quo. It sounds a little bit scary, but it is actually very freeing. Because when you realize that the linear path is just one option and not a law, suddenly you see so many other possibilities. You see that your life does not have to look like everyone else's life to be a good life.
So, what is the truth then? If life is not a straight line, what is it?
I think life is more like a curvy road, or even a spiral. Sometimes you go back to a place you have already been, but you are at a different level. You are seeing it with new eyes. You are carrying different experiences, and that is not failure. That is growth.
I love that image. A spiral. You are revisiting things, but from a higher place. And if we think about it that way, nothing is ever truly wasted. Not the detours, not the unexpected turns, not the moments when the road completely disappears and you have to find your own way.
Beautifully said, Anna. Okay, let us move on to the second big lie, and this one is very relevant in our modern world, especially with social media, especially with the culture of productivity and hustle. The lie is this: being busy means you are successful.
Oh, this one frustrates me. I will be very transparent about that because I see it everywhere. People competing over who slept less, people posting about how many hours they worked, people wearing their exhaustion like a medal, like a trophy, as if the more tired you are, the more important and successful you must be.
I was absolutely one of those people. I used to be so proud of saying, I am so busy. It felt good. It felt like it meant I was needed, I was important, I was valuable. But then I started to look at what I was actually doing with all those busy hours, and I realized something uncomfortable. I was busy, but I was not always productive.
And this is the critical distinction, the difference between being busy and being productive. Being busy means you are doing a lot of things. You're active, you're moving. But being productive means the things you are doing are actually creating results. They are moving you forward towards something meaningful. You can be incredibly busy doing things that do not matter, and you can also accomplish something truly significant in just 2 hours of focused, intentional work.
The philosopher Blaise Pascal once said something like, all of humanity's problems come from the inability of man to sit quietly in a room alone, and I think there is real wisdom in that. We are so uncomfortable with stillness, with silence, with not doing something, and so we fill every moment with activity, even if that activity is not serving us.
Society has built a system where busyness is rewarded in many ways. If you look busy at work, your boss thinks you're working hard. If you look busy on social media, people think you're building something. But the truly effective people, the genuinely creative and successful people, often protect their time for deep thinking, for rest, for what some researchers call deep work, work that is focused, meaningful, and truly moves things forward.
So the question to ask yourself is not, how busy am I? The question is, what am I actually creating with my time? What is my effort producing? Is this activity connected to something that truly matters to me?
And this requires a level of self-awareness that is not always encouraged. Society tends to tell us to keep moving, keep doing, keep producing. It doesn't often stop to ask why, or to ask whether the direction we're moving in is actually the right direction for us.
Exactly. Okay, I want to move to something that I think many of our English learners will find particularly relevant, because this is a lie that affects people who are trying to learn English, who are trying to start something new, who are thinking about a change. The lie that you are too old to start.
Yes, this is one of the most harmful misconceptions out there, and it is so deeply embedded in our culture that many people do not even question it. They just accept it as a kind of biological truth. Oh, I am too old to learn a language now. My brain is not as flexible as a child's brain. Oh, I am too old to start a business. That is for young people with energy and time. Oh, I am too old to go back to school. What will people think?
I hear this from English learners all the time, and it genuinely makes me a little bit sad, because the truth is so different from what they believe. The human brain is remarkably adaptable. Scientists use the word neuroplasticity to describe this. Neuro means related to the brain and the nervous system. Plasticity means the ability to change shape or form. So neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to change, to adapt, to form new connections throughout your entire life.
And yes, it is true that children learn languages very naturally. They absorb sounds and patterns almost automatically. Their brains are in a special phase of development. But adult learners have enormous advantages too. Adults have a larger vocabulary in their first language to make connections with. Adults understand grammar concepts more easily when they are explained. Adults have motivation and purpose, which are two of the most powerful drivers of learning.
And the research on this is very encouraging. There are people who have learned new languages in their 50s, 60s, and even 70s. There are people who started completely new careers at 50 and found more success and fulfillment than they ever had in their previous career. There are people who published their first novel at 65, people who ran their first marathon at 70. The idea that there is an age limit on beginning something new is simply not supported by evidence.
The word fulfillment is worth pausing on. Fulfillment, Fulfillment. Fulfillment is the feeling you get when something feels meaningful, when you are living in alignment with what truly matters to you. It is deeper than happiness. It is more lasting. And fulfillment does not have an age limit.
I think the real issue with the too old lie is not actually about age at all. I think it is about fear. Fear of looking silly, fear of being a beginner, fear of not being as fast or as good as someone younger, fear of starting and then not finishing. And these fears are real and they deserve to be acknowledged, but they are not good reasons to stop yourself from growing.
And this connects to something we should talk about more directly, the idea of critical thinking. Critical thinking does not mean being negative or critical of everything. It means looking at a claim or idea and asking, what is the evidence for this? Who benefits from me believing this? Is this belief helping me or limiting me?
If I apply critical thinking to the idea that I am too old to learn English, I ask myself, what is the evidence? And when I look at the evidence, I see hundreds and thousands of examples of adults who learned English successfully. So the belief is not based on evidence, it is based on fear dressed up as fact.
Perfect. That is exactly what critical thinking looks like in practice. Now, let us move to the fourth lie, and this is one that I feel very passionate about. The lie that failure is the opposite of success.
Oh, this one. This one changed my life when I finally understood it differently. Because I was so afraid of failure for so long, I did not start things because I was afraid they wouldn't work. I played it safe. I stayed in situations that were not right for me because at least they were familiar. At least I was not failing publicly.
And our culture reinforces this in many ways. From a very young age, we are taught that failure is bad. We lose points on tests when we get things wrong. We feel embarrassed when we make mistakes in front of others. We are praised when we get the right answer and ignored or corrected when we get the wrong one. The message is very consistent. Failure is something to avoid at all costs.
But then you look at every person who has built something remarkable, every inventor, every entrepreneur, every artist, every athlete, and you find the same story again and again. They failed many times. They failed spectacularly and publicly, and sometimes painfully. And then they learned from those failures, and they tried again with better information.
Thomas Edison, who invented the light bulb, famously said that he did not fail 10,000 times. He found 10,000 ways that did not work. And that reframe, that change in perspective is everything. The word perspective is so important here. A perspective is your point of view, the angle from which you see something. And a change in perspective can completely change the meaning of an experience.
If failure is the opposite of success, then every time I fail, I am moving away from success. I am going in the wrong direction, and that feels terrible. It feels like a reason to stop.
But if failure is a part of success, if failure is actually a necessary component of the journey, then every time I fail, I am collecting information. I am learning what does not work. I am getting closer, not further away. And that is a completely different emotional experience.
I started a small online business a few years ago. It did not work. By the old definition, that was a failure. Full stop. The end of the story. Embarrassing. But by the new definition, I learned an enormous amount. I learned about marketing, about audience building, about what I'm good at and what I'm not. And everything I learned in that experience directly helped me with the next thing I tried, which worked much better.
And I think this is something that school systems, unfortunately, do not teach very well. The process of failing thoughtfully, of asking after something does not work, what can I learn here? What would I do differently? What was actually quite good about what I did, even if the result was not what I hoped?
Failing thoughtfully. I really like that phrase. It is not about celebrating failure for its own sake. It's not about being careless or irresponsible. It's about extracting the lesson, taking what the experience has to offer and using it to move forward more intelligently.
And when we're afraid to fail, we often do not start at all. And that, I would argue, is the real failure, the failure to begin, the failure to try. Because at least when you try and it does not work, you have information. When you never try at all, you have nothing, only questions and regrets.
That is a powerful thought. Okay, let us talk about the fifth lie. And this one is probably one of the most discussed and debated ideas in modern culture, the idea that money buys happiness.
This is a nuanced topic, and I want to be careful here, because I don't want to say something that's too simple in either direction. The truth is not as simple as money is everything or money is nothing. The truth is more interesting and more complicated than both of those positions.
Right, and I think this is a good example of why critical thinking is so valuable. Because when a topic is complex and nuanced, we need to be able to hold more than one idea at the same time. We need to resist the temptation to reduce everything to a simple yes or no answer.
So let's start with what the research actually suggests. There's genuine evidence that having more money does improve quality of life when you are below a certain level of income. When people do not have enough money to cover their basic needs, food, shelter, safety, healthcare, then getting more money genuinely and significantly improves their well-being. This is not surprising. When your basic needs are not met, everything is harder.
Yes, and I think it's important to acknowledge this directly, because sometimes when people say money doesn't buy happiness, it can sound a little bit dismissive of the very real difficulty of financial stress. Not having enough money is genuinely painful. It limits your choices, it causes chronic stress, it affects your health, your relationships, your ability to think clearly. So money does matter.
Absolutely. But here's where it gets interesting. Research also suggests that beyond a certain level of income, the relationship between more money and more happiness becomes much weaker. Once your basic needs are met, and once you have some sense of financial security, each additional amount of money produces less and less additional happiness. Economists call this diminishing returns.
So what does actually buy happiness beyond a certain level of financial comfort? The research points to a few things consistently: meaningful relationships, a sense of purpose,
the feeling that you are contributing something to the world or to the people around you, the experience of being in what psychologists call flow, which is that state where you are so engaged in what you're doing that time seems to stop. These things, not the number in your bank account, are the strongest predictors of deep and lasting life satisfaction.
And I think this lie comes from a very understandable place. Money is visible, it's measurable. You can see someone's car, their house, their clothes, their holidays, and your brain tells you, if I had those things, I would be happy too. But what you cannot see is the inside of that person's life. You cannot see whether they feel lonely or purposeless or anxious or disconnected from the things that truly matter.
Social media has made this comparison trap much more intense. We're constantly looking at carefully curated images of other people's lives, the best moments, the most beautiful versions, the highlights, and we compare our ordinary inside experience with their extraordinary outside presentation. And that comparison almost always makes us feel like we're missing something. And what are we missing? Not money, usually. We are missing the permission to value things that cannot be photographed. Things like a genuine conversation with someone you love, a quiet morning when you feel at peace, the feeling of doing something that actually matters to you, the feeling of being truly known and accepted by another person.
So the more honest and complete version of this idea might be money can buy comfort, security, and opportunity, and those things are genuinely valuable. But meaning, connection, and purpose are the foundation of happiness, and those things cannot be bought. They must be built through how you live, how you relate to others, and how you engage with what you do.
I think that is beautifully said. And I think it is a much more useful and realistic framework than the simple idea that money buys happiness or that money is bad. The truth is always more interesting than the extremes.
Always. Okay, now I want to connect all of this to something that is very specific and very relevant to everyone who is learning English right now. Because there is a lie about language learning too, and it is one that stops so many people from speaking and from growing. The lie is this: you need a perfect accent to be a good English speaker.
Oh, yes, this is such a big one, and it is one that I feel very personally because I spent years being embarrassed about my accent. I thought that if my English did not sound exactly like the accents I heard in Hollywood movies or in British television shows, then my English was not good enough. I was not good enough.
And this is a deeply harmful belief because the goal of language is communication. The goal is to be understood. The goal is to connect with another person, to share an idea, to ask a question, to express something that matters to you. The goal has never been to sound like a native speaker from a specific country.
And here's something that many people do not realize. There is no single correct English accent. English is spoken by approximately 1.5 billion people in the world, and the vast majority of those people, the large majority, are not native speakers. They are people like many of you watching right now, people who learned English as a second or third language, and they all have accents, different, beautiful, interesting accents that reflect their cultures and their histories and their identities.
When I hear someone speaking English with an Indian accent, or a Brazilian accent, or a Korean accent, or a Nigerian accent, I do not think their English is bad. I think about all the hard work they did to learn this language. I think about how impressive it is to communicate in a language that is not your first. I am genuinely impressed and genuinely interested.
And the research on this is very clear. What makes a speaker effective and easy to understand is not a particular accent. What matters is clarity, which means how clearly you pronounce each word. Pace, which means how fast or slow you speak. Vocabulary, which means using words appropriately for the context. And confidence, which means speaking without constant hesitation or self-correction.
Confidence is perhaps the most important factor of all. A confident speaker with a strong accent is almost always easier to understand than an uncertain speaker who is trying to sound like someone they are not. Because when you are trying to hide your accent, you are distracted. You are not fully focused on the communication. You are focused on the performance. And that actually makes the communication worse.
I want to say something directly to every person learning English right now. Your accent is not a mistake. Your accent is a reflection of where you come from. It is a part of who you are. You do not need to erase it to be a good English speaker. You need to develop clarity, vocabulary, and the courage to keep speaking even when it feels uncomfortable.
And discomfort is actually the signal that you are growing. This connects back to everything we have been saying today. The discomfort of the curvy road instead of the straight line, the discomfort of slowing down when everyone around you is busy, the discomfort of starting something new when your age feels like an obstacle, the discomfort of trying something that might not work, the discomfort of speaking a language imperfectly in front of other people.
All of those uncomfortable moments are the moments of growth. They are the moments where the old version of you gives way to a newer, expanded, more capable version. And the lies we've talked about today, all of them have something in common. They all tell you to avoid that discomfort. They all tell you to stay within what is safe, expected, and familiar.
And there is a word for the place where growth happens. It is called the edge of your comfort zone. And the lies we have been exploring today are essentially walls around your comfort zone. They keep you inside what feels safe. And the truth, the real truth, waits just beyond those walls.
So let us bring everything together. Let us review what we have explored today, because I want it to land clearly. The first lie is that life must follow a straight linear path. The truth is that life is a curvy road, and every detour, every unexpected turn, every moment where you had to find a new direction is not a failure. It is a part of your unique story.
The second lie is that busyness equals success. The truth is that productivity and meaning, not constant activity, are what create a life that feels genuinely successful. Ask not how busy you are, but what you are actually building with your time and energy.
The third lie is that you're too old to start. The truth is that the human brain is capable of learning and growing throughout your entire life. There is no age limit on beginning something new, whether that's learning English, starting a business, changing your career, or pursuing a dream you have carried quietly for many years.
And the fourth lie is that failure is the opposite of success. The truth is that failure is a necessary part of success. It is not the end of the road. It is information. It is experience. It is the teacher that textbooks cannot replace. The only real failure is the failure to try, or the failure to learn from what didn't work.
The fifth lie is that money buys happiness. The truth is more nuanced. Money buys comforts, security, and opportunity, and those things matter. But meaning, connection, purpose, and genuine human relationships are the real foundations of lasting happiness, and those things cannot be bought. They must be built through how you live, how you relate to others, and how you engage with what you do.
And the sixth lie, the one specifically for our language learners, is that you need a perfect accent to be a good English speaker. The truth is that clarity, confidence, and communication are what matter. Your accent is not an obstacle. It is a part of your voice, and your voice, exactly as it is worthy of being heard.
These are not just ideas. These are practical things you can carry with you. Every time you feel like you are behind on the linear path, you can remind yourself, life is a curvy road. Every time you feel proud of how busy you are, you can ask, but what am I actually producing? Every time you think you're too old or too late, you can remember that your brain is still capable of remarkable things. Every time something doesn't work out the way you hoped, you can ask, what can I learn from this? Every time you feel like money will finally solve everything, you can invest some energy in the things that truly feed your soul. And every time you hesitate to speak English because your accent isn't perfect, you can remember that your voice matters exactly as it is.
I want to end with one more thought, and it connects to why we started this conversation in the first place. We grow up receiving information from people who received it from people who received it from people who came before them. And much of that information is beautiful and useful and worth keeping. But some of it is outdated. Some of it was never quite right. And some of it was shaped by the specific fears, limitations, and pressures of a different time and a different context.
And the most important skill you can develop in life and in language is the ability to think for yourself, to take what you have been given and hold it up to the light. to ask, does this serve me? Is this true? Is this something I actually believe, or is this something I was told to believe and never questioned?
This is what we mean by critical thinking. Not cynicism, not distrust of everything and everyone, not the idea that no one can be trusted and all information is false. Critical thinking is simply the habit of asking good questions, of looking for evidence, of being willing to change your mind when the evidence suggests you should, of holding your beliefs with open hands instead of closed fists.
And when you begin to think this way, something interesting happens. You start to see options where before you only saw one road. You start to see possibilities where before you only saw walls. You start to feel a sense of agency, which is the feeling that you have the power to make choices and shape your own experience, rather than simply being carried along by the expectations of others.
The word agency is important. Agency. Agency is the capacity to act independently, to make your own choices, to be the author of your own story rather than a character in someone else's script. And I think that is what the freedom from these lies really gives you. Not perfection, not a guarantee that everything will work out exactly as you hope, but the freedom to author your own life based on your own values, your own discoveries, and your own truth.
And for everyone learning English right now, I want to say this directly. Learning a language is itself an active agency. It is a choice to expand your world, to reach across cultures and connect with people whose experiences are different from yours. It is one of the bravest and most beautiful things a person can do, and you are doing it right now by listening, by following along, by staying with us through this conversation.
That deserves to be celebrated. Genuinely, every minute you spent with this podcast today is a minute you invested in yourself, in your understanding, in your ability to think and speak and connect across borders of language and culture. That is not a small thing. That is a remarkable thing.
And we hope that this conversation has given you not just some interesting ideas to think about, but also some useful English to carry with you. Words like misconception, expectation, status quo, fulfillment, perspective, agency, neuroplasticity, these are words that live in important conversations, and now they can live in your conversations too.
If there is one thing we hope you take away from today, it is this. The most important conversations you will ever have are the ones you have with yourself about what you truly believe. Question the ideas you have inherited, examine them carefully, keep the ones that genuinely serve you, and be brave enough to let go of the ones that do not.
And remember that process of questioning, of examining, of choosing your own truth. That is not rebellion for its own sake. That is growth. That is wisdom. That is the work of becoming more fully yourself. And there is nothing more worth doing than that.
Thank you so much for joining us today on the English Journey. This has been one of our favorite conversations, and we mean that sincerely. We love it when we get to explore ideas that are bigger than just grammar and vocabulary, ideas that connect language to life, because that is what language is really for. It is the tool we use to understand our world and to share that understanding with others.
And if this conversation made you think, if it challenged a belief you have been carrying without examining, we would love to hear about it. What is one idea you grew up believing that you now see differently? Share it with us and with the community in the comments. Write it in English, even if it feels imperfect, because your voice matters, your words matter, and your journey, however curvy and unexpected it has been, is worth sharing.
Until next time, keep asking questions, keep speaking bravely, keep choosing the curvy road with curiosity instead of the straight line with fear. This is Anna.
And this is Abel. Thank you for learning with us today. We'll see you on the next part of your English journey. Take care of yourselves, and remember, the truth, when you find it for yourself, feels like freedom.